We are officially in the NBA offseason. Players getting shipped across the country. Shams is going crazy on Twitter. The whole thing's firing. LeBron, what is he doing out there in LA? Celtics kind of mixing things up. Not sure what they're going to look like next year. We're going to talk about everything that's happened in the last week and a half or so. A lot has shaken up across the NBA. First, though, this is the Game 7 podcast. Tuning back in for our second episode. I got our socials just down here below. Give us a follow on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all these things. If you're listening on audio platforms, go ahead and give us that 5 stars and drop some reviews down there. Help us out. I appreciate all the support on the first episode. We're excited to be back again. We're going to be dropping every Tuesday. It's Game 7. Best 2 words in sports. Let's do it.
Get it done. Up for the left test. That's a
Let's get rolling with some trade talks because a lot has happened over the last week and a half across this league. I'm going to touch on a couple trades here, not as big as some of the ones that we talked about last week with KD to the Rockets and Desmond Bane going over to Orlando, but still some things that give me a little bit of a puzzling look almost, especially with Boston, and that's where we're going to start because they shipped out Drew Holiday for Anfernee Simons and 2 second-rounders. Again, these second-rounders keep popping up. When I first looked at this trade, I thought that the Celtics had sent 2 second-rounders along with Drew Holiday to the Trailblazers. But no, the 2 second-rounders are coming back to Boston. So it's Anfernee Simons and 2 second-rounders for Drew Holiday. Not really sure. Second-rounders, throw them in. Whatever. Do what you got to do. I said exactly how I feel about those last episode. I'll keep it short here. Anfernee Simons averaged 20 points and 5 assists last year. He's only 26 years old compared to Drew's 35, and he averaged 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. The big thing, though, is that Drew Holiday makes $30 million at age 35, and his contract goes for another 3 years. Anfernee Simons, though, he makes $27 million. Not a huge difference when it goes to salary. But here's the thing. Anfernee Simons only has 1 year left on his deal. This speaks salary cap. This speaks luxury tax. This speaks second apron. $300 million to Jaylen Brown just about a year ago for Boston. Jason Tatum on a huge contract. Obviously, the Drew Holiday contract was huge, too. A lot of guys that are getting paid. Kristaps, who they also moved. We'll talk about that here in a second. The Celtics, without Jason Tatum next year, due to that Achilles injury that we saw in the series against New York in the second round, kind of seems like they are conceding next year, maybe. Doesn't really look like their championship aspirations, the way that we've seen them work over the last couple years, may be holding true this year. Brad Stevens, obviously one of the best general managers in the league. I can't really disagree with anything that he's done over the last half decade, however long it's been since he stepped down from, stepped up from coaching into the front office. Okay. 1 year left on Anfernee Simons. What good does this do Portland? That's my first note here, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I'm not really sure what Portland's doing. Maybe Drew Holiday comes in. First of all, you've traded for this guy twice now in the last 2 or 3 years, right? Remember when the Dame Lillard stuff was going on? They ended up shipping Drew Holiday out to Portland, and then the Celtics ended up getting their hands on it, and it was just wreaking havoc in the East because if the Bucks had known that Drew Holiday was going to end up in Boston, they probably would not have made that trade. Either way, though, Portland, they still got a lot of moves to make. I don't really want to spend too much time talking about Portland. I don't know how many Portland games, Trailblazers games, that you guys are watching during the regular season. I know it wasn't as much as some of these other teams, so we'll keep it short on there. They still have a lot of moves to make, and this makes me curious. I don't know why you take on that contract. I know you've been trying to get rid of Anfernee Simons. There were talks of him going to Orlando before the Desmond Bane deal, but giving him up and picks to get back Drew Holiday, not really sure exactly what you're doing there. As far as the Celtics go, like I said, this speaks second apron. This speaks luxury tax. This speaks salary cap. You have a guy now who has 1 year left on his deal instead of 3 years left. Gives you a lot more flexibility, especially when his contract is expiring at about the same time that your superstar is coming back to your roster. Obviously, they want a little bit of continuity in Boston. You don't want Jason Tatum coming back to a completely new roster and just saying, hey, go contend with these guys that you haven't even played with and you haven't played basketball in a year. So, although the talks heated up around Jaylen Brown and Derek White there for a second, I don't think there's a whole lot of validity to those talks. Jaylen Brown, it seems, I saw Brad Stevens as well as Utah, who was a team that we saw maybe inquiring about him, say, I don't know where these reports are coming from. We haven't really been talking to the Celtics about trying to get Jaylen Brown. Doesn't really seem like even the Spurs kind of threw their hat in there for a little bit. They came out and said the same thing. So 3 teams, one who has the rights to the player, all saying, we're not talking about moving Jaylen Brown. I gotta believe what they're saying there, especially after these moves. I don't think you can shake it up much more than you already have. From what I have seen, the talk on Twitter, the reports from different reporters, kind of seems like Boston may start the year with a high usage for Anfernee Simons. Maybe you go Derek White, Simons, Brown as your kind of front 3 there. Not too sure what it looks like outside of that. Obviously, Horford, Hauser still hanging around there. Probably still some moves to be made for them. But if you can, because like I said, the interest for Anfernee Simons was pretty high throughout the year. If you can run up his value at the beginning of the year, get him in have a lot of actions designed for him, heavier usage than maybe he was seeing in Portland. Obviously, like I said, 20 points, 5 assists last year. The kid can hoop. The guy can hoop. I say kid. He's not a kid. He's older than me, but he can hoop. He's a real basketball player. And at first, I was like, Celtics, are you kidding me? When does the talent stop? Are you guys just going to keep getting this super team-esque? I don't know if you really call them that. It seems like just a really nice built team. I don't know if you'd go super team as far as the star value goes. But Anfernee Simons was a guy that we've been talking about for a while. We've been hearing about for a while as a potential move for a lot of different teams. Never expected Boston to be one of those people. Again, salary dump. You don't have him after this year. You try and run up his usage. You try and get him out of here. You maybe get some draft capital on the back end. You maybe get some more younger role-type players to go around Tatum and Brown when they come back, keeping White, obviously. And I think they're focused on 2 years from now instead of next year. Now, I will say, to that point, though, the East is wide open. There are a lot of teams, and 2 in the Pacers and the Bucks that are in a similar situation as the Celtics. Now, for the Bucks, it's not your best player that's out, but it is your second best player and an aging superstar and Damian Lillard. And we're talking about the Magic and the Knicks and the Cavs all having these windows opening potentially for them in the East. There's no reason for me to believe that the Celtics without Tatum can't also compete out there. The question is, do they want to? The other trade they just made, Porzingis going to Atlanta. Again, getting off the salary for Boston. I don't want to spend too much time on that for Boston because you got Georges Niang back in the trade who I'm not super high on. I know he's a Boston guy. Doesn't really play into the Missoula ball philosophy that they've been doing where they just put up more threes than you, and some of them are going to go in, and threes count more than twos, so that's how we're going to win ball games and play defense too, obviously, with the roster that they have. I'm not super high on Georges Niang in Boston, so we're gonna fast forward through that part a little bit. I want to focus on Atlanta though, because if I'm a fan of the Atlanta Hawks, a team that when you look up the word mid in Webster's dictionary, you get a picture of the Hawks logo. I'm pretty sure before last season there was some kind of stat where over the last 10 years they were exactly 500. I mean, 41 and 41 seemingly basically every year. Play-in merchants. Obviously, the Eastern Conference Finals run in 2021, that when they fell short to Milwaukee, who ended up being the champs that year, they looked pretty solid, but it hasn't been a whole lot of upside since then. Now, you have some young guys, some wings. Jalen Johnson speaks to me. Dyson Daniels, who was in DPOY conversations early last year. Trae Young, obviously, don't really have to say much about him. Okongwu, who is a kind of an up-and-coming, I wouldn't say star, but up-and-coming player who can really contribute on this team. If I'm a Hawks fan, this is the most excited I've been in a while. KP probably coming off the bench, but to get that kind of talent when healthy, when he's playing, when he's on the floor, he's a really good talent. And to only have to give up Niang for that, that's a pretty good deal for them. I like this a lot for Atlanta. And I know that listening to some of their fans talk, scrolling through the Twitters, the Reddits, all these types of things from these fans, they're pretty excited about it too. And I think, especially to that point of the East kind of being wide open this year, I'm not saying Atlanta is a contender by any means. No, but they can't compete. And maybe they can get out of that play-in spot that it seems like they've just been sitting in there like it's purgatory for the last half decade. Maybe they can get up out of that. Obviously, health, a big factor. We'll see. KP hasn't really seemed like he could stay healthy a whole lot as of late. But even on Boston's championship run, he was missing a lot of games. Either way, I really like the move, and I don't think it's somebody that you would necessarily have to depend on. You don't need him for 82 games in a year. But if he can give you 55, 60, and put together a decently healthy playoff run, you might be able to make some noise in a first round. And that's for Atlanta, that's a huge win. That's a huge win. That's something that they haven't seen in a long time. Getting in out of the play-in into the first round and losing in 5, getting swept, whatever it may be. I'm excited to see Atlanta. I know their fans are excited, and I like this move a lot for them. Speaking of, and I'll kind of backtrack here because we were talking about the Celtics and having to mess around with that salary cap. Take a listen to what the Nuggets general manager had to say at a press conference just a couple days ago. Take a listen to this.
I think that for us as an organization, going into that second apron is not necessarily something that we're scared of. I think that there are rules around it that we needed to be very careful of with our injury history. The wrong person gets injured, and very quickly you're into a scenario where that I never want to have to contemplate, and that's trading number 15. And so, we're very conscious of that pushing forward, and providing the resources that we can when the moment arrives. But that second apron, is it a hard cap? I'm not 100% sure, but it's something that teams are obviously very aware of going forward.
What kind of nightmare scenario are you talking about? I mean, is this a zombie apocalypse? That you're talking about trading your best player? Not just your best player, the best player in the world. Nikola Jokic has been the bona fide best player in the world, in my opinion, for at least 3 years now, probably more than that. You're talking about 3 MVPs and a finals MVP in the span of 4 years. And you're up on stage saying, oh, this cap has made some kind of nightmare scenario potentially where somebody may get hurt and you have to trade 15? What kind of conversations as a front office are you having where you come out and have some kind of psychological slip up where you accidentally mention something to the world, right? Serbia's watching this, where you're saying you have to trade the best player in franchise history. If Nikola Jokic wanted to retire right now, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. His jersey would be retired by that team. And you have the front office up in front of the country, the world, saying, oh, I don't know. We might have to trade him if something bad happens. What in the... My jaw was on the floor as I'm watching this guy talk. I mean, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I can't spend too much time on this because do I think there's actually a legit chance that they're going to trade Nikola Jokic? No, not a shot. No way. We have some dumb GMs in this league. Not that dumb. We have some dumb owners in this league. Not that dumb. You just can't trade that guy. You can't even talk about it. Why would you make it so that someone like me that can just put a microphone in front of their face is going to come up here and start talking about the possibility of you trading the best player in franchise history? A top 10 big of all time. And that's not a stretch. It could be bigger than that. It could be smaller number than that. You could be talking about a top 7, maybe top 5, depending on who you ask. That's one of the best runs in NBA history, Nikola Jokic, in 4 years. 4 years. And you're up here talking about you might have to trade 15. No. Let's move off that. I had to talk about it, though, because what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Let's move back to trade talk. Let me take a deep breath here. Okay. Let's talk about the Wizards. I know that's what you guys tuned in for. CJ McCollum, Kelly Olynyk go from New Orleans to Washington in return for Jordan Poole and Saddiq Bey. Okay. Are the Wizards cooking? Do the Wizards have something to play for? Are the Wizards eyeing a play-in spot this year? I don't know if I had that on my bingo card for 2025. They have a good amount of young talent, right? They got Sarr last year. They got some other guys on that roster that are going to be trying to contribute. Picked up Trey Johnson in the draft on Wednesday. And they got some nice veteran leadership. CJ McCollum, Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton. All guys that have played at a high level. CJ McCollum's been to a Western Conference Finals. Chris Middleton, a champion, right? These are guys, and Kelly Olynyk's been around the league too. And a guy that can stretch the floor for them. They have a couple different looks that they're playing with here. I don't know if the roster as it stands right now will be the roster at the end of next season. I think CJ McCollum's a guy that probably has some value in the trade market. Almost like a step down from a Desmond Bane, an older version of a Desmond Bane kind of. I think there's always a market for shooters in this league, and CJ McCollum is one of them. As far as New Orleans, Saddiq Bey, I like that pickup almost better than Jordan Poole. I'm kind of interested to see what a backcourt of DeJounte Murray and Jordan Poole looks like. I'm not too confident in that, I don't think. I mean, when's the last time we've seen Jordan Poole get in a defensive stance on an NBA floor? It's been a while. Golden State? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many Washington games you were watching, but I don't know if he was slapping the floor and getting his hands out ready to go. Interested to see how that backcourt looks. Obviously, DeJounte can play defense. He can get steals. He can stay in front of somebody. But, that old saying, there's only one ball on the floor. Both of those guys like to have it. And we haven't even started talking about their superstar. Or Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, these guys that should have the ball in their hands, probably more than I would say Jordan Poole should. Either way, I really like this move for the Wizards. I'm excited for Washington. We haven't seen Washington be competitive since, 2017? With John Wall and Bradley Beal? When they were playing the Isaiah Thomas Celtics in the playoffs every year. Don't come in all black, dress for our funeral. They win Game 6 and lose in Game 7 in the second round. I don't remember them being this competitive in a while. Now, obviously, we have to play the season. We have to see. Competitive might be a stretch, but all I mean is they could be eyeing a 9 seed in the play-in, sneak into the playoffs, and have a first-round playoff matchup for the first time in however long for Washington. Let's move on to a different trade. Lonzo Ball from Chicago, heading to Cleveland for Isaac Okoro. I'm not going to talk about the Bulls because, in our last video, I had said in the comments, replying to somebody that had commented, that as far as regarding the Phoenix Suns, we may be seeing the worst mismanagement over a 5-year stretch in Big Four sports history, at least NBA history, since they got Kevin Durant and just gutting that roster and making a trade for Bradley Beal. The Bulls are not too far behind that. The Bulls are a team that don't really seem like they want to win, so we're not going to spend too much time on that. You traded from 45. You were at the 35th pick in the draft in the second round and traded back to 45 just so you could get some cash from the Lakers. What are you doing? Why? Why even do that? Who even cares? You have to really want some money to get that deal done. Either way, what I do want to focus on is the Cleveland Cavaliers, because obviously Lonzo Ball, with his injury history, been off the floor for a little bit, came back, starting to look a little better. I think he can contribute, and he's continuing to work his way up. That was a really bad injury for him, and it seemed like something that was career-altering. It still seems career-altering. Obviously, number 2 pick overall, and now you're getting traded for Isaac Okoro. Here's my question for the Cavs. Are the Cavs done with Darius Garland? there were reports that were coming out after the Houston deal was made to get Kevin Durant that Cleveland had dangled Garland out to Phoenix to see if they would bite on that and send KD to Cleveland. What are the plans for Cleveland here? What are the plans for the Cavs? Are they done with Darius Garland? We've seen this big four of Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen run back for 2 years straight. Both times kind of fizzled out with some injuries, right? Are they ready to shake things up over there? I don't want to. I don't want to move Darius Garland if I'm the Cavs. I like Darius Garland a lot, and I think he does a lot for this team that kind of unlocks the offense, right? They have the other side of the door, but they need the key to get through that locked door, and I think Darius Garland is that key. He does a lot. It takes a lot of pressure off Donovan Mitchell as far as ball handling, playmaking goes. We like Donovan Mitchell when he can score. That's the Donovan Mitchell we like. We like seeing him drop 48 points in a playoff game. We like to see him dropping 50 points in a Game 7 against Orlando last year to carry his team. I'm pretty sure they only scored 98 points that game. Didn't break 100, either team did, and he scored 50 of them. That's the Donovan Mitchell we like to see. And you don't get that Donovan Mitchell if you don't have Darius Garland taking a lot of that playmaking off his plate. But after these reports, I'm not so sure that Darius Garland is going to be hanging around. I know there were talks of sending him to Orlando. Orlando in a lot of these trade talks, everyone knew what they needed. And it seemed like there was a big market for it, right? I just said, if you're a shooter in this league, you're gonna find a spot on somebody's roster. Curious how the Cavs go about the rest of this offseason, and specifically what they do with Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen, because it kind of seems like they're done with this big four. I wouldn't be. I would try it one more time. I give them the benefit of the doubt from last year with some of the injury stuff. And let's not forget that Darius Garland 2 years ago had a broken jaw, lost weight, was eating food out of a straw for an extended period of time. I don't think people cut him the slack that he deserved coming back from that injury like he did. And then this toe injury in the most recent playoff run, I think it was a bigger deal than they were making it out to be as well there. Maybe that's why they want to move him. I'm still pretty high on him. I'm still pretty high on this roster, especially with the way that the East is shaking up. Now, if you could have gotten Kevin Durant, I mean, that's kind of a different story, but what is Lonzo Ball's purpose on this roster is my question. Because it seems like they need a 3 more than anything to just fill out that starting 5 outside of that big 4 that we just mentioned. But it doesn't really seem like they're super high on Darius. And I don't know how much longer he's going to be hanging around in Cleveland. All right, let's talk about one more thing before we get into some draft talk. Not a huge draft guy, so we'll keep it short there, but got some things that I want to talk about. With LeBron James, the king, he has opted in to his $51 million player option with the Lakers, but Shams is reporting that he is unsure about the Lakers' ability to win short term. This guy's only got a couple years left in this league. We've known that for a long time. He's 40, 41 years old at this point. He's played 21 seasons. He is about to be in a territory that no one, as far as just seasons played. I mean, greatness aside, just seasons played in this league. He's about to be in uncharted territory, playing longer than any other player that we've seen in the history of this league. But he's only got a little bit left. And I know he's chasing another ring. He's only got the 4 right now. He's got to match Kobe, right? You got to get as close to Jordan as you can. That was the goal. That's why he wore 6, right? Because of Jordan's 6 rings. Do I think that the Lakers actually have a chance of moving LeBron? I highly doubt it. I don't think so. Here's my guess, and we've seen this from LeBron a couple times, is they need a big man. We saw that. Jackson Hayes, not cutting it. Not cutting it. Jared Vanderbilt, not cutting it as a 5. You need somebody else, Jared Vanderbilt. I like him as a player, but not cutting it as a 5 with that small ball lineup. A lot of people had them favored against the Timberwolves coming in. They thought that they had a chance, and it did not go that way whatsoever. So they need a big man. Claxton's out there, probably available. I like that a lot. That's my favorite from them. I know the Kristaps stuff, there was a little bit of talk. Obviously, he's out because he's in Atlanta. Walker Kessler from Utah, not really sure what his availability looks like. And good old Clint Capella. Anytime somebody needs a big man, you just throw Clint Capella that way, right? Dalton Connect, Rui Hachimura, first-round pick, will get you anyone in this league, according to Lakers fans. I think this is a move to put pressure on the Lakers front office and let them know, hey, I'm not messing around here. I know you guys got Luka. I know you think you have this whole timeline thing reset. That's not my timeline. Look at me. I'm over here. I'm LeBron James. I brought you guys a championship 5 years ago. Let's try and get another one. Don't be looking 3-4 years down the future. I may not be here. Let's get this thing done now. Let's get somebody big in here. Let's get Claxton. Again, that's my favorite move for them, and I think he's attainable. The Nets, they want all the picks they could get. They want them all, and you got a pretty valuable first rounder that almost got you Mark Williams before he failed his physical. Why not go get Claxton? And I like Claxton better than Williams anyway. I think Claxton's really good and does a lot of what they need. They got the offense covered. They need a backline defender, a rim protector, a shot blocker, a guy that can deter people from the paint. And I think Claxton can do that. Let's talk some NBA draft now. And I'm not a huge draft guy. I pay attention to it a little bit, but there are a couple things that happened either on Wednesday or leading up to Wednesday that I want to talk about a little bit. Now, the second thing is going to be about the first overall pick. We're going to kind of flip it backwards that way. But the first thing that I want to talk about in regards to the draft is Ace Bailey. Lot of talk about Ace Bailey leading up to the draft here. He started as kind of a consensus top 3 guy, in my opinion, right? I think it would have been Flagg, Dylan Harper, and then Ace Bailey. Obviously, VJ Edgecombe somewhere in there. Trey Johnson didn't go too far after. But I think Ace Bailey was originally the 3rd best prospect out of this draft. Now, he drops to 5. And not a huge drop, but significant because of why it happened. And let's talk about that for a little bit, because Ace Bailey being represented by Sharif Cooper's dad, who also represented Sharif Cooper, and Sharif Cooper dropped to the 2nd round, and I don't really remember him making it on an NBA floor. I think he played a little bit overseas, but was a really good prospect, just like Ace Bailey is, and it didn't pan out. Not sure if that's a guy that I want to be taking advice from. And I know a lot of people are hating on him because he didn't work out for a single team. I even saw some tweets where it was like, I think Ace Bailey might have got real NBA confused with 2K because he was trying to pick where he could go like it was a video game. Not the case in the NBA here. You can't really pick. He was trying, but it didn't work out. And now he ends up in what I think is the 2nd worst location in the NBA that a player could get drafted, in Salt Lake City, Utah. I think the first one is Toronto, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the team or the franchise or the front office or anything like that, the fan base, because I think the fans are great out there. But I just don't see a lot of guys wanting to play at Kentucky or UNC or whatever it is, play in the 48 states and have to move out of the country and have to have, like, I don't know if they need like a work visa to get going through customs. I don't know how all that stuff works, but it seems like a lot more of a hassle than just getting drafted to the Heat or something like that. We saw Colin Murray Boyles get drafted to the Raptors. We saw that reaction. We saw the first word he said after there. Bleep that out. Yeah, he doesn't. He's looking at his girlfriend like, yeah, well, I guess I'm going to a different country now. I know he said that it was because he didn't expect to be drafted that early. Either way, Toronto. Nonetheless, Ace Bailey drops to 5. He's going to Utah. He's playing for the Jazz, a team that doesn't really have a whole lot of direction. Started off looking pretty solid at the beginning of last year, and then about halfway through the year said, what are we doing here? We're winning too many games. Let's pool our starters. Let's play Lauri Markkanen 25 minutes a game because we don't want to win. And then on top of that, we'll give our coach, Will Hardy, a huge extension because he's helping us lose. And he's not a bad coach. He's a good coach. But he's just in a weird situation right now. Not sure that's where Ace Bailey wanted to end up. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not where he wanted to end up. Thought it was looking like he wanted to go to Washington, which we talked about their situation. Probably would have been a little better for him. I know some of the reports that I was seeing was he wants a clear path to stardom, whatever that means. I'm under the impression that if you come in this league and you're a baller, that you're going to become a star no matter where you are. We've seen players come to stardom at any point in any team across the league. You look at the Wizards and the Trailblazers now. You call them the desert of the league. You send the people there to get forgotten, but let's not forget that Dame Lillard and not exactly to that stature, John Wall, Brad Beal before all this mess that he's in right now. Those guys were good. Those guys were stars. I mean, Dame Lillard better than good. He's really good. But as far as like John and Brad go, you can be a star anywhere in this league if you're good at basketball. And he said he wanted a clear path to stardom. He said he wanted the ball in his hands. He wanted to make sure that he was getting the right amount of shots up. It seemed like before he was even drafted, he was looking at the second contract. And now he ends up in Utah. I will say this. I am trying to not hate on Ace Bailey because I don't think this is all on him. I think we got to remember, these are kids. These are 18, 19, maybe even 20-year-old kids that are facing the reality of trying to make millions and millions and millions of dollars on the biggest stage that you can play basketball across the globe in the NBA. Not sure he's getting the best advice here, and I'm sure it's probably hard in that moment to kind of see what you may or may not. It's not like he's been through this before. It's not like he's gone through draft interviews and worked out with teams like this before. I'm still rooting for Ace Bailey. I think he can be a good player in this league. He's a tough shot maker. We saw that in college at Rutgers. I think he could still be really good. I hope this, I don't want to say humbling. As soon as he got off the plane, he was in the gym, ready to work. He said he was ready to work. He said, I can control the controllables. Outside of that, I got to play basketball. And that's what I'm excited to see him do, is play basketball. Let's see this kid out on the floor. Let's see this guy go to work. I want to see how hungry he is for all these things that he was asking for. These things aren't just handed out in the NBA. We saw Paul George say that he didn't think Ace was in the position to be able to make these demands. And I got a hard time disagreeing with him. You haven't even been drafted yet. I mean, you see some of the emotion on these people's faces as they're drafted, celebrating with their family, tears rolling down their cheek, right? We made it. We just got drafted in the NBA. And then you got a situation here where you're trying to command and strong arm NBA GMs who will be just fine without you. Again, probably bad advice. I'm really rooting for him, and I think he can be a solid player in this league. Now, let's get to the main event, because this is who we're all talking about and have been for 2 or 3 years. It feels like outside of Victor Wembanyama, Cooper Flagg has been the guy that we've looked at and said, yeah, okay, you are the bona fide number one pick, number one prospect in this draft class. And it came to fruition on Wednesday night. Cooper Flagg is now a Dallas Maverick, and it has me asking the question, where do we rank Dallas in terms of contenders for next year's NBA championship? That's right, contenders. Dallas Mavericks. Who would have thought back in February that I'd be asking this question? Who would have thought the day after Luka Doncic is traded to the Los Angeles Lakers and everyone's chanting, fire Nico Harrison, calling this the worst trade in NBA history. The most surprising trade in NBA history, it definitely is. It still holds all those titles. But now we're back, just a few months later, having the discussion, where do they rank as terms of contenders in a stacked Western Conference that is treacherous to try and get out of? Let's run through this, because obviously Kyrie went out with the ACL late last year. Hate to see that. He'll be back at some point this year. Not sure when, not sure what he looks like, not sure how long that ramp-up period is. Obviously, you got to get your wind back. You go months without running and then try and insert somebody into an NBA game at that pace. That's a lot. AD had the groin injury as soon as he got traded, right? We all remember the debut game for the Dallas Mavericks. He started out hot, looked like he was about to tear it up, right? And then he goes out, and he's out for a little bit. Pretty sure he returned by the end of last year. Always, health kind of always a question with AD, but let's put injuries aside for a second. Let's go down this roster for Dallas. No injuries. Let's start of the playoffs next year. This is what this team could look like. Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively as your starting five. Coming off the bench is still P.J. Washington, Dante Exum, Daniel Gafford, and Najee Marshall. What are the roster concerns there? What are the concerns? Maybe defense in the backcourt? Kyrie, Klay, maybe not the greatest defenders there, but you have a great back line. And AD, Lively, Gafford, PJ can guard a little bit. You want to talk about spacing? You got Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, Cooper Flagg can shoot the ball. AD can shoot the ball. Shift AD down to the 5, slide PJ in at the 4, and you got 5 guys that can shoot the 3 ball on your team or on the floor. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of roster concerns outside of health for the Dallas Mavericks. And that's one of the concerns that you can apply to any team across the league. We can sit down and say, oh yeah, this team could be a championship contender, but they got to stay healthy. Okay, all 30 teams in this league have to stay healthy, right? That's just the nature of the beast. The people that stay healthy are there in April, May, June, when we're watching it come down to the wire. But that's something you can't really control. I want to run through this one more time. Just the starting 5. Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively. Wow. This team looks like, on paper, depending on how Cooper Flagg comes in, I'm a believer. I've been trying to capture the flag, right? A lot of these teams have. I think Kyrie will come back good. The ACL, that's a bad injury. Obviously, we've seen a lot of technology, advancement in technology for coming back from these injuries. I think when KD came back from the Achilles in Golden State and then over to Brooklyn so fast was kind of when I opened my eyes to, wow, we can get these guys back pretty quickly. Kyrie, not a guy that's super explosive, right? He's not jumping out of the gym. He's not Jalen Green. He's not Aaron Gordon in Orlando jumping over people. He's not Zach LaVine. He's quick, he's shifty, but he's not explosive. So I think he'll be okay. I think the ball handling can stay. I think the shot making can stay, and I think the IQ can stay too. I'm really excited to see what Dallas looks like because that starting 5 that I just read out, plus help coming off the bench, and Jay Kidd, still a pretty good coach in this league. They're right up there. Last week when we talked about the Rockets, I had put them up there in the West, and I had mentioned the Nuggets and the Thunder. Dallas Mavericks are right there too, and Timberwolves too. This is going to be, we say it every year, it's a gritty Western Conference where you have no clue who's going to come out in the top 6. Dallas is right there. Dallas is right there. Still a lot of moves to be made by all the teams. Obviously, free agency just opened up. We just had the draft. People are moving around. I already saw the odds come out for Ace Bailey's next team a day after he was drafted. Still a lot of things to happen. Shams is calling this the craziest offseason. We got to see. Let's see. It's lived up so far, but we still got a long way to go. We still got a lot of free agency to talk about, and we're going to be covering it all right here on Game 7. Going to be putting a little bit of a focus on some short-form content stuff as these trades are coming down. I just want to hop right in front of the camera and just give you a minute of my just initial reaction to some of these moves that are being made, big free agency signings, these types of things, as well as rankings, tier lists, grades on all these things, redrafts, all these fun content things that you guys see floating around. We're going to be doing the exact same thing here, just a little bit better. That's how we like to do things here on Game 7. Got my socials right here. Go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and subscribe on YouTube if you're listening to audio platforms. Even if you're not, head over to audio platforms. Throw in a 5-star. Throw in a review. All these things are helping us gain a little more traction, especially if you like what you see, like what you're hearing. I appreciate the support. It goes a long way. We got a long offseason here. I'm excited to cover it. Game 7. Thanks for watching.